Tate, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
You've been having a lot of appearances lately, and this legislation is closed. Yay!
Yay, thank goodness. Absolutely.
A lot of accomplishments. We're going to go into that tonight. Got a lot of things to talk about. A lot of bills. Over 150, almost 200 bills. Isn't that right?
190. That's exactly
right. That's darn near 200. That's
exactly right.
That's what passed, right?
That's what passed. Yeah, that's what passed. Yeah. And so especially whenever we talk about that, we went into this session saying that we weren't going to do much. It was going to be one of those cleanup years. And so we really started out slow. And then, it was just when the momentum picked up, then we just started rolling.
You guys hit, Mark and I have covered a couple of episodes building up to this, which has been kind of great because we covered a lot of the bills that have a lot of national attention, where Kentuckians are really standing firm, especially I was watching national news tonight. They're talking about the West Virginia case of a transgender playing sports in their Supreme Court, already hitting, and we've already clarified the laws in our state. And honestly, in opposition, we as a legislative have sent a lot of these bills forward, and they came back vetoed by the governor's office, and then you guys turned them over. Talk a little bit about those and how we're postured against the national issues as a Kentucky state.
Yeah, I'm really very, very proud of the legislative branch. One of the things that we're doing is that we're not shying away from those very controversial issues. One of the things that we've said repeatedly since we took the majority was that we want to make sure that Kentucky is the place where people want to bring their families and raise their families. And so we have to be able to demonstrate conservative, and I'm just going to say conservative Christian values. We're not going to shy away from being a Christian because that's where we actually hold each other and ourselves accountable.
And I'm glad you said that because it's about accountability.
That's correct. Yes,
that's really the big difference between us and non-Christians is that our faith holds us accountable to the things that we say and do.
But I will advocate a Christian value against goodness.
Yes, and those are two different things.
Basic foundational goodness, and it's not. I want to say Christian values because I'm a Christian, but I also want to say it's the goodness of being whole and good, and what's in the best for the society. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I believe in fair and equal treatment and all of those things, but at the end of the day, though, what is best for the society? And Mark and I have been talking greatly about this. Even with recent national elections, and then just Senator McCarthy trying to get elected. And the uprising in the Republican Party trying to hold each other accountable. And, it's up to us as we continue to drive forward to keep upholding those values that keep us good people. I don't know if you know this, but lately I've been actively involved in our own community. They did a nice article in the Meade Messenger. And I always thought this was very neat how Troy had approached this, but he hit me up and he said, Steve, and he's got all these other great people involved in the animal control advisory board. It's an advisory board. We serve at the pleasure of Troy Koch to advise him on how do we look as an animal shelter. And just the one unique thing he said that got me on board was, if people see how we treat our animals, he'll know how we treat our people.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's actually been demonstrated. That's demonstrated that if there's a person who is violent against animals, the probability of them being violent against humans is very high.
Absolutely.
But in our founding fathers, let's go back to this. Our founding fathers, and whenever our nation was created, we're a free body of people.
Absolutely.
And so in order for
under God,
absolutely. And in order for our form of government to be successful, there has to be morals and ethics involved.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to hold each other and ourselves accountable. Otherwise, all of this will fall apart.
I just can't get over the lies that we see every day in media sources. I love to do this because we bring facts forward. It's a factual conversation. Sometimes Mark and I'll throw an opinion at it about how we feel about it, but we throw the fact out there. The fact is this, you know what I mean? But to your point, it's these moral values. And today, more and more kids, teens, and we talked to Aris about this on one show, and it's like they have this belief. Once it's in their head, it's in their head. It's got to be true because it's on the internet. I joke about that. We've seen it on TV, but they won't go do the homework. They won't go do the research, and they walk and live off of some of these little non-facts. And somebody will tell you a lie to your face.
Well,
they'll believe it. It's true.
But that's really no difference now than it was 200 years ago. 200 years ago, if you read it in the newspaper, it must be true.
Yeah, but it wasn't as visual to everybody's hands and fingers as it is today.
You're right. The only difference is it gets to you faster.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly
So
right.
I get that, but it's really no different. There's no magic. What's the word I'm looking for? Accuracy. Ink pen that was, or printing press that was printing absolute truth in the newspapers 200 years ago. Fast forward to 100 years later, now we have television, right? Or before that, radio.
And social media. Now we got social media.
And as the technology has gone up, yes, it's the same type of information. It's just that it gets out to so many people so much faster.
Well,
and it's harder to counter. It's harder to get it out to. That's why we're doing the podcast. It's just when we see something that we don't think is true, or being maybe it's got some truth to it, but it's not the whole story. We want to make sure the whole story gets out there.
That's right.
Well, and I think if the responsibility falls back onto us too as individuals.
Yes.
Just do the homework.
To do the homework and to apply critical thinking.
That's exactly
and I
right.
think that's one of the things that, especially now,
No.
people are not being taught.
We don't want you to critically think. We want to dummy you with TikTok and everything else. That was on the National with the CEO of TikTok.
That's right.
You can aspire to think greater than TikTok. I think that we could have a better country. But unfortunately, if you look, Chinese is moving in with the yen. They're in Brazil now. That was on national news tonight. So they've already moved to Iran to move to the yen. They're looking at Russia to move to the yen. Changing the dollar changes the economy and the face of the world and the globe today. So they're already embedding themselves. I don't know if how much reels or you see on Facebook. What's that?
Is it the yuan? Mm-hmm. Is it okay?
I think it is. Whatever they're not
the yen is
the
Japanese.
Yuan,
I think
the yuan. I'm sorry, but Chinese dollar. Transforming the globe. And we caused that. We caused that back in the Clinton administration. But anyway, nobody looks forward. They look now, and nobody looks to the history to see what we've done in the past to make sure we don't repeat it again, and we do it over and over again. But to your point, doing homework, 190 bills, that's a lot of reading for a legislature over so many days.
Well, if you look, it was actually almost 600 bills were filed.
That's correct.
And only in 190, and this was the short session.
This was a short session.
So
Absolutely right.
how do you get to 100? Or how do you get to 190?
I want to do the math problem though first. How many days in session?
We were in 30 days in session. Actually, 20 days because we chose not to be in session while the government during this veto period.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So 20 days in session. You had 190 bills. Just going to talk about the 100. How many pages per bill?
Oh my gosh. Well, it varies, right? So it's not like on the national level.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So it can vary from like 2 pages all the way up to 300 pages.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to go.
We did have some this year that were 300 pages.
All right. So let's see if I can do this.
Yeah, and then what happens too, not only that, but what happens is whenever we get to the last final week, when we're trying to push things, cramming things through, we might send something over to the Senate, and then another bill gets attached to it. So we knew what it looked like before it went to the Senate. Then it comes back with amendments plus another bill attached to it.
I'm being gentle. I'm going 200 pages per bill.
Yeah.
I'm cutting it in half. That's 38,000 pages in 20 days.
That's exactly right. It's, by the time the session is over, I've got a stack of paper. I've got papers everywhere because I can't just look at it online. I've got to pull it apart, read it, highlight it, underline it, question mark it, and go back and ask the bill sponsor.
So if it's anything like I know, like typically a bill's tied to and then you kind of draw a golden thread that goes back and forth, right? And then you're kind of like tracing, okay, well, if this goes away, what are the other KRSs above and below it that get trumped by it and all this other stuff? It's like when I look at regulations for government, and then it goes to DOTIs, and then it goes to congressional law and all that other stuff, you got to draw the trace. So I can only imagine the additional workload that goes in it. You do this in 20 days.
That's right.
All right, so most people that I know with this strategic level, you got a staff. So how many staffers are helping you cut this stuff up so you can get it into the bits you need it into?
Right. So I've got one administrative assistant that helps me. And
Okay.
not only does she help me, but she also helps 4 other people.
Oh, wow.
But I don't demand and ask her to help me with this. I completely do it myself.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I want to understand specifically, so I understand what the implications are.
And the only reason why I ask this is because I'm staging and building a conversation here that I need people to understand that if they play this back and listen, the workload of the person that you send forward, that you vote on, that puts this level of work in 20 days. Just, I want people to think about 20 days. You're reading, you're circling, you're up midnights. I can't even imagine the number of engagements you're in besides just being in there, and you're listening and to people when they speak about their bills or all that other stuff, and then you're circling and highlighting and you're going through this process. That's a lot of information to consume, digest, and then regurgitate.
Yeah, you certainly have to love to read. You've got to love to read, and you have to have good reading comprehension skills.
Well, I think you mentioned another piece too. You also have to have the critical thinking.
Absolutely.
If we do this, what are the second, third, fourth order effects? What I find challenging for our party, and Mark, you can speak to this more, but we are a large party now in the state, and we have to hold each other accountable.
Well, I mean, that's what we said when, at the election night, we said, we've won. Now we're going to hold you accountable.
And you can do the work.
So you go do the work. Nancy does the work, right? We don't have to worry about a lot when when she goes up there. She listens to us. She's constantly in contact with us, and she goes up there and represents her values. That's what we voted for.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate when that happens. Now we swept in Meade County. So now we told everyone,
get to work.
Make it, you've been hired to do a job, go do the job.
But how does that dynamic work at the state when you're working with people that aren't from us? I mean, they're not us. We're our own culture, community. You represent us. You go to the district, you sit there at the state, and you see these people that get elected from these other areas of the state. And some are more wealthy than others and stuff like that. But I mean, you work with these individuals, and what is that like? I mean, obviously you don't all get along. You can't.
Not at all.
And you can't always agree. So how does that work?
Well, absolutely. You don't want us to agree. As a matter of fact, you don't want us to agree, because if we do agree, then what's the purpose of having 100 representatives, right? You want us to bring our values and our needs from our district and actually work together. That, I like to compare it to like, a diamond, right? A diamond only turns into a diamond because of that abrasion.
That's right.
And so that's what we want from our legislative branch, is to get in there and actually dig and to work together, so the product that pops out at the end and that is produced at the end is the best possible product.
Yeah.
Now, on every year, we probably go back, and there's some that we have to go back and fine tune, especially if it's a new concept. But we want the bill to be the best that it possibly can when it's introduced the first time.
So now you were a part of how many committees, this legislative branch?
Yeah, so I'm a member of 9 different committees.
Wow.
Right. One of them is as a pro-life caucus co-chair, and I've also got one that I'm appointed by the governor, which is Southern Region Education Board. So that's a regional board that I'm actually out of town at least twice a year for that. But then the other is that I'm the state director for women in government. So that's a national committee as well. So I'm involved with a lot of people nationally and local, at the state level, and then at the local level.
So at the end of the day, then with your committees that you're on, you said 9. So how many bills of the 190 did you guys get across the line?
Oh man, I can't even tell you. Probably coming out of my committee, and part of those were the Senate. So I'm going to say probably around the area of 40 to 50.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
Absolutely. It's a lot of work, yeah. And then not only that, I participate in the committee hearings for those.
Yeah.
But then you made the point earlier that I've got to understand how these bills actually work with the other committees.
That's right.
And so I'm listening to the committee meetings for those committees that I'm not even officially appointed to, because I want to hear the testimony of the subject matter experts.
Well, that kind of goes back to, because I wanted to ask this question earlier when we were talking about the workload, is one, these bills are filed, a lot of times they're pre-filed.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Oh.
Yeah, we changed that. In the past, you were able to pre-file them during the interim.
Gotcha.
So what this legislative body has decided was that frequently, whenever things were pre-filed during the interim, then that caused entirely too much controversy, because things were pre-filed that we really had no intentions of ever implementing, for example, a red flag law. So you might have a Democrat, for example, who files a red flag law, and we have no intentions of filing that, but now
it's never going to make it out of committee. It's never going to be heard.
That's right. But you end up having like 500 contacts.
So is that just a rule? Is that just a rule for the body?
Yeah, we passed that the last.
It's not a law. It's a rule on how you guys.
The parliamentary procedure.
I would think that would also help, because if you file a bill, right, and then you have a different election and a bunch of different elected people come back that are in support of it or whatever, or they get more people elected that come in to support a bill. I don't know. I'm just.
One of the things, though, and so I'm not opposed to not pre-filing. I'm not opposed to that at all. But one of the things that it did do, though, was if there was something that we wanted to test the waters with, then we would throw it out there and then have a really good conversation.
Yeah, because then you get people giving you feedback saying, well, I think, well, some people might say, hey, we really want that. And others may say, well, this is what's wrong with that, which would only make it better. Because that's what we were talking. That's what we're really talking about is, you file a bill, the Republicans are super majorities. So you're going to have people of different opinions. It was easy the first couple of years, right? Because it was easy to get everybody to agree on the big things. Now we're getting into the minutia.
Yeah, I call it the low-hanging fruit, right? Not to be insulting, but it truly is.
No, it is. I mean, it's like these are the things that we wanted to go after. And everybody agreed on those things. So everybody was all getting together, kumbaya. Now you have to, the body has to mature as the supermajority, because you have to now start thinking about, okay, how do I react to opposition within my own party?
Absolutely.
To something that I believe in. And this is where you get
without retaliation.
Without retaliation and things. Yeah. So, and I don't think that, I don't know if we're there yet. I mean, it
we're
seems
absolutely not there yet.
No, we are not there. We see it at the national level, and we see it at the state level right now. I think it's happening in the state. I mean, you would know better, but I think it's happening at the state level. And people today, I don't know what it is, but even in our own party, they don't like to be challenged. And I'm like, the facts are the facts.
I mean, it's okay for me to say,
yeah, but put your feelings
Steve, I don't
down.
Agree with you.
That's right.
Hey, let's sit and talk about this.
Yeah, why am I mad at you?
And there's no anger. Yeah,
that's right.
There shouldn't be any anger, because
I still got a bro hug for you, man.
That's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
That's what we used to call statesmen.
All right, I'm going to talk about something funny, just to talk about being good. I just got to bring this up. I'm coming here. I'm getting the paper because I already gave one away because Cheryl Whalen, but. I'm coming here. I'm getting in line to get this paper. It's a young man, 16 years old, standing there. I'm thinking, he's in line. Are you in line? He says, no, sir. You got $10 so I can put some gas in my tank. Aww. And I'm like, I said, what's your name? He says, Stephen. I don't want to tell you his last name, but he says, Stephen. That's funny. That's my first name. Isn't that odd that we should meet right here, right now, both named Stephen, and you're asking me for $10? I said, boy, where are you from? He said, I'm up from Muldra. And I said, what are you doing down here in Brandenburg without no gas? And he said, well, I came to pick up a friend of mine. I said, where y'all going? Back home to play video games or something? He said, no, I was supposed to go home for supper or something like that, and it's my time. I said, how did you not know you was going to run out of gas? Didn't you check? And he said, no. He said, my gas gauge is broken. And I said, well, you seem like a real nice fella. Do you do drugs? He said, no, sir, I don't do drugs. I play music, and I do pretty good in school, except I got an F in math. And I said, well, that probably explains why you didn't check your wallet. And I
said, check your gas tank, right? Yeah. Check your mileage, right?
Is the gas gauge broken, or did I just not do the math?
And I look over at the lady because I just bought the paper, and I tell her I had $1 in my wallet. I bought the paper with $1. And I look at the fella, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna get you your $10 of gas. She rang me up for $10 of gas, and I said, but I'm gonna tell you something, you gotta pay it forward, all right? And don't you and your little fella, I better not find y'all getting in no trouble, and you better not be speeding down 1638 to get to Muldra, because you go right past my house, and I know that road, and I'm in the paper right here because Messenger talked about me the other day. So people know me, so don't mess around. Anyway, I'm just kidding. But I was just paying it forward. But the goodness, right? But it's okay to challenge somebody. And whether it's your friend or your neighbor or somebody you don't know, it's okay to challenge them a little bit, to have a conversation. And all I did was just challenge them to,
be responsible.
To be responsible. I gave him a little lesson. It wasn't anything bad. I rubbed him up a little bit just to get to know him, but I didn't challenge him in a disrespectful way. And he was honest.
There's nothing you said that you wouldn't have said to your own child, or because when my kids made mistakes like that, that's exactly how I would ask them. I was like, well,
and I asked him where was his
where
mom
was
and dad, but he said they wouldn't come get me. And I said, oh, they wanted you to leave your car and walk all the way back. I'm not going to do
Because
that
they want
too.
you to be responsible.
Yeah, I just pay it forward. But
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
I mean, $10 is like 2 gallons of gas.
it is. He had an old clunker. But my point is changing, make it funny a little bit for content. But people need to be challenged.
They do.
They,
Well, I mean, you gotta.
Well-
that's how you learn.
Well, and then not only that, and I know that I'm not the best at everything, but one of the things that I learned through my businesses, especially with UPS, was I surrounded myself with people that were smarter than me. And there's no point in surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you if you're not going to listen to them.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when they would come to me, I always made sure that they knew that they could bring anything to me. I just said, I don't care how you started out. I don't care how you throw it on the table. Throw it on the table. Just don't call me fat, dumb, or ugly.
That's right.
Other than that, throw it on the table. I don't care what terminology you use.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it to get through the root of the problem to make sure that we end up with the best possible
if
product.
it's bad, it don't get better with time.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's
we
exactly right.
talk
Don't
about
hide it.
that's right. We talk about that when I know Troy wants us new animal shelter. We can't go from what we have now to a new one if we can't fix how we do business. And
Yeah, you gotta fix the infrastructure of the process infrastructure before you can actually start building buildings.
yeah, no, and I would say you probably have to do the same thing with a bill.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about a couple of ones that we'll talk about gender first, the gender inequality and all that other stuff, and getting into the transgender and that in the sports. I mean, y'all tackled that. I mean, what was the kickback? I mean, obviously there was a lot of probably outside probably rhetoric coming into the state again over that because nobody wants to see that legalized. We did it. So what kind of crap did you guys take for that?
Well, I mean, so
That's a technical term, right?
That's right. The
That's
crap,
right.
right. Yeah. So of course, you're going to have all different kinds of concerns. You're going to have all that. But I think the thing that was the most interesting was, and we've talked about this a lot, is the media controlling the narrative. And so, when we're talking about, I like to call it the transgender gender mutilation.
Right.
It's the gender
Right.
mutilation. They like to call the affirmation. I call it mutilation.
That's right.
And so I've been told that I was being provocative by using that term. That's not provocative.
That's not true.
That's truly what it is.
Well, we were talking about this on a show not too long ago. There are children coming forward now at the age of 20. Well, first of all, there's a psychological study that states that your adulthood doesn't really kick in until that 21 to 26.
26, that's
It's
exactly
really in that mature age where your body matures to be.
Your mind doesn't mature until you're about 25.
That's right.
Your body matures much earlier.
That's where. Well, okay, yeah. So to be specific though, how do you know at 3 or at teen or at 18, and then these children that are coming forward now that had mastectomies, they've been transmutilated as you describe, and they are jacked up. They are absolutely messed up, and this was forced upon them by influencers in their lives that had a direct control over their lives.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say, we have a great medical community here locally. I'm not criticizing anybody locally, but as far as I'm concerned, the biggest issue is the medical community and the lies that they're telling these children, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Absolutely.
And it's happening here in Kentucky. It's happening here, locally within our larger cities, and it is a tragedy. It's absolutely a tragedy when you have someone who has been sold a lie that they can transfer and become if you're a female, you can become a male, or a male to a female, and actually cut off totally healthy body parts and replace them with false body parts that will never operate properly. If you're a male and you can transfer transgender to a female, you'll never, ever, ever truly be able to have a baby. Or all the things that it comes from being a female.
I can't think of a better way to take over the world by convincing us to be so confused about who we are as a nation, so that when somebody takes us on at arms, we're going to be so confused about what to do that we'll be more worried about our feelings than we will be about about protecting our freedoms.
Absolutely. It's emotionally immaturity. We've got to be emotionally mature and make decisions logically and not emotionally.
We look at this, and there was a, I used to watch the TED Talks and stuff, and probably still do sometimes, but they kind of went away during COVID, so I haven't really watched them since then. But there was a TED Talk. I can't remember when it was or who actually put it on, but it was about basically legalizing pedophilia as a sexual preference.
Sure.
That was a TED Talk like 10 years ago. And it's like, I look at all these things that we talk about today, and it's like, man, why do they, it seems like they are trying to create a new category for sexuality that fits that TED Talk.
That's
It's
exactly
really
right.
so strange.
Yeah.
And it's like, and really and truly, I've said things like this in the past. I'm all for educating people and people being educated. But when you take all the children and say, you must go to school, then all you've done is herd all your children into one location where now the wrong teacher can teach them. The wrong information can be put in there. I'm not so sure that public education is a smart idea anymore.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah, and I've heard teachers actually have told me, Nancy, when we shut that door, the student body is ours. Right. And so to me, that's terrifying. I didn't raise my children, up to the school age or to they're my children.
That's right.
They're not the state's children. They're not the
That's right.
teachers. They're not the state's children. They're my children. They're your children. And you deserve every right to influence them. the way-
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Absolutely. Reading, and that's all you want. That's what
Critical
you want.
thinking.
Critical thinking. You want the skills
Art
to be taught
and
to them
sciences,
in
too.
order for them to be mature and to be ready to go into the workforce.
Leave
the
your
whole purpose.
opinion out of it and your politics outside of the
That's
door.
the whole purpose of going to school is to be prepared for the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
It's not entertainment. It's not anything else.
Vladimir Lenin said, "Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted." And you're talking about one of the founders of communism, of the Socialist Party in Russia.
That's right.
Right? That is their credo is about, we don't have to win today, we'll win tomorrow because we will take over the minds of the children.
That's exactly right.
And that's exactly what we're seeing. The socialists in the United States have played on that for 60 years.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. 60 years, and they don't even have to destroy us from outside. They can destroy us from within.
No, because they
They've
just
already
keep telling
said
our
that.
kids
They've
new
already
things.
said
They divide us in every which way they can. They continuously try to divide our people into different groups that they can now go and try to attack one at a time, because they know that if we stand together behind the flag of the United States or being American, they can't beat us.
That's exactly right.
So they've torn us down. They've torn us down one group at a time, and created these situations where it's harder for us to even discuss things. And now, when Trump was elected in 2016, the media realized they no longer controlled the narrative, and they thought that they were going to be able to just continue to push at a very slow pace until the socialist programs and things that they believe in were going to happen. And then they realized that they didn't control it. They thought, hey, we'll never lose a presidency again. But when Trump won against all of that's why it scared them. That's why they had to start attacking him. We can get into whether or not he's guilty of this or that or whatever. He's not the greatest man that ever lived.
Well, he's certainly no angel. He's an alley cat.
He's not an
That's
angel,
okay. Let's
but
call it that.
his policies that he put in place
policies.
were American policies for all people.
Right. He did exactly what he said he was going to do,
Yeah,
and that was
that's right.
he was going to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
That's right, and that's what he did.
That's
what
exactly
he did.
what he did.
He didn't
America
give one,
first.
and because he didn't pander to a group here or a group there, He was attacked as racist. He was attacked as a homophobe. And, we're talking about a man who has, he was, before he became president, he was praised by Jesse Jackson. He was praised by Al Sharpton, and then he wasn't.
That's
because he did not pander to groups. And when he became president, so.
TED Talks got your answer. So it was the person that did that event. It was a TED Talks, event. And it was Miriam Hein, German. Let me be very clear. Abusing children is wrong without any doubt, but a pedophile who doesn't abuse children has done nothing wrong. I want to quickly summarize where we're at the moment. According to current research, pedophilia is an unchangeable sexual orientation, just like, for example, heterosexuality. No one chooses to be a pedophile. No one can cease being one. Difference between pedophilia and another sexual orientation is that living out this sexual orientation will end in disaster. And it was on that controversial talk that it got a bunch of attention. But it's these points of views that get turned into and twisted up without critical thinking.
Well, and they're trying to normalize it, right? And
Yeah.
that's exactly what they're trying to do, is normalize it, when we know, especially people that are have ethics and morals and can critically think, we know that that is not normal.
Yeah, I mean, I can live with you. Don't push your values on me.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
God will punish you if I'm not the punisher.
God can figure that out.
God can figure that out in the end. I'll love you. I'll treat you like
Amen.
a normal human being. I have tons of friends that are of the
Gay and lesbian.
gay and lesbian all over the place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you
And
don't
honestly,
treat them any different than anyone else.
I don't, but I feel.
But I don't have to celebrate their lesbianism or their gay,
differences.
their homosexuality. That's what you're asking me to celebrate it. You're trying to force me to celebrate that, and I'm not going to do that. Right? I'm not going to teach my kids to celebrate it. I'm going to tell them.
Well, that's divisive to me. Personally, it's divisive. It's the
is.
same thing that we do, or that we see in the nation when we say, well, if you don't vote for me, you're not black enough. When Joe Biden did that, I'm like, you're splitting us. I don't want to be a split society. We are a melting pot. Okay, fine. That's your values. I got it. But the core values of the greater good of the society, we're establishing rules for good. Government shouldn't have total control of the population, but the population shouldn't have total control of the rest of the population either. So to my point is, we do set up laws, and we are a republic. And as long as we are a republic, those laws should be for what keeps people safe, healthy, and normal, that we can all live out our lives with a normal livelihood. Don't be pushing agendas towards me by creating laws that force me to have to believe a certain thing or not believe a certain thing.
Or to pander to another group.
Exactly.
And you have to just use that term. That's
No,
exactly
and
right. And that's right.
But that goes back to some of these bills that you guys were challenged with. Is there has to be objection. There has to be consternation.
we need somebody to say, is that the right thing to do? Is there something else that needs to go on there? You need to be able to have that. And it used to be in the United States that you had Republicans and Democrats. We all agreed that we used to always agree that there was that we wanted to, we used to always agree that we wanted a better America. We wanted everybody to be treated equally. It used to just come down to how do we do that, right? It never was
The 14th Amendment. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it was like, how do we do that? And the Democrats wanted to push more government control. Republicans wanted to get tended to want to get government out of people's business and things like that, so that they can all prosper. Because it's hard to run a business. It's hard to pick up a business because there's 40 different taxes and things you have to deal with just to sell something. And it's like,
I say all these things too. And I just want to be clear. I mean, as a business owner too, I don't discriminate against any of those orientations either for employment or anything like that. It's just that our government should not be to that point. Spock said it best. I'll put my hand up. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You know what I mean? The government is meant to establish boundaries for us to form. And this is a capitalist society. We're a republic. We're a republic of laws. Those laws are supposed to protect the interests of everyone so that everyone can achieve the American dream, but not at the You should not be slighted at the hand of some other group or entity just because of. We should all just be in the pool together.
That's right.
That's it. So that we can all be a family, raise families, live freely together without divisiveness. And I was thinking about this tonight as I was contemplating some of the news that I was seeing because of West Virginia and then because of what we just passed. And I'm thinking, okay, this whole thing between boy and girls playing, girls that are this transgender that are running, playing with boys and boys that are transgender playing in girl sports and the disadvantage. And then I'm thinking this argument, what would the argument have been? And what did it sound like from our time when women wanted to argue that they should be able to play the same sports?
Right.
And then they separated the sports because they knew it would be a disadvantage for a woman to win a world record in something up against a man.
Right.
And even the Olympic, games decided that.
I mean, that's what Title IX was all about.
That's exactly right.
But my point is that they went and they fought. Imagine what that fight was like. But scientifically, we want to draw. We know a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and now we want to draw cloudiness to confuse the masses.
It's so funny, and I like to tell this story, and of course it ages me, but that's okay. You can tell by looking at me that I'm aged. But whenever I was in high school in '77, I was part of the first girls basketball team at our school, and we were horrible. We were absolutely horrible.
But it was just the thrill of being able to have the right to do it.
But we had never had the opportunity at our school to be girls basketball. We had played horse and all those other things, but we had never had the opportunity to play as a team.
Now, my mom went to Catholic school, and their version of female basketball was you had players on both ends. They didn't have to run the whole court.
Right. We would football pass it to the other end because we couldn't run and bounce the ball at the same time. Okay. So, but my whole point is that we've worked so hard, and just look at the girls NCAA that we just saw between Iowa and LSU. I mean, talk about the talent. Look at the Meade girls team. The Greenways. I mean, talk about entertaining.
I know it.
Man, we went from where we totally stunk to look at it's so entertaining to watch them play.
And the women coaches and the women referees
and oh my gosh, and the teamwork and to think that people want to just give that away. Well, they want to just give that away. It just infuriates me.
It almost makes me feel like that we should not be arguing whether a boy should go play in girls sports or girls should be playing in boys sports. It takes me back to the argument that says, well, why don't we just argue that there is no more separation and boys and girls, or there's no more separation between boys and girls, and we just have one sport, and there is no dividing that ever again. And if you want to be a boy or a girl, you can figure that out. But there's only one football team. There's only one basketball team, and we're back to the dark ages.
No, back to the dark ages.
That's exactly where we're headed with all this.
That's exactly right. 40 years ago, we're taking this all the way back to 40 years ago, and it just infuriates me because I can just see the progress that we've made.
Absolutely.
So exciting.
I don't know when this was, but I'm gonna look something up real quick. So
and I've shared this with several people before as well. Whenever I started at UPS in 1987, I was promoted into management. Exactly, I was promoted into management in '87 because of the skills that I brought to UPS.
You're a hard worker.
Hard worker, absolutely. I was at the right place at the right time, and I was prepared. So I got promoted in the first year of my employment with UPS. At that time, 97% of the management population were men. I was a 3%er, right? And then whenever I retired, 40% of the management population were women. And
that's awesome.
It was awesome.
You were a trailblazer.
Absolutely, because we proved our value. I was at the right place at the right time, and I worked so hard to be able to demonstrate, just like all you guys do.
Sure.
You all work hard to demonstrate your value, and I demonstrated my value, and nobody had to help me excessively to get to where. I mean, I had mentors, and I networked, but I did the right things at the right time, and I'm just was so excited that the female population of management properly represented the people that work there.
I when I mentor young soldiers, I still have just soldiers that I mentor. And one of my reading assignments that I give them is Ashley's War. I don't know if you ever read that before, but it's about a female soldier. And it was about a time when we were in the Iraq-Afghanistan war. And we had a big problem with the Taliban and the women. They didn't want to talk to male soldiers. They didn't want to. But what we did is, and it's tragedy, but it only proves, like, we have warriors that are in our women corps. They make up a tremendous piece of our army. They're integral. I don't know why we haven't changed our laws about drafting and all that other stuff, because the draft is essential to an all-volunteer force in the event that all hell breaks loose. But in that book, and I recommend it to anybody to read, but when we transformed the Army to allow women into combat arms, that was a significant event, because there are some, and I met them. I mean, they're physically fit. They are. I met the first Ranger, female Ranger, amazing person, lives a great life. But in Ashley's war, they're problem solvers, not problem identifiers. They're
we're problem solvers.
Yeah, those are the people you want to elevate and move up. It doesn't have a gender to it. It's just people who get the job done. But that is a fantastical book, because people realize okay, I go to an assessment and selection to be a part of this special, whether Ranger or special forces or special operations cell, to go do these special mission operations with a small tactical group. Now, I do that as a guy, and I'm in. I'm in the club. I get a tab and all that other stuff. But at the time they did this, when it was the book was written as Ashley's War, she's actually at the Army Museum. She's one of the first statues that you come to. They're these little pillars indoors, and she's on the far right. I see her every time I touch her statue there when I go there to D.C. every time. But what they did this special training to go do this for a 1-year mission. And then you're back to what you used to do. You didn't get to be part of it anymore. This girl could fast rope a tall rope with an 80-pound rucksack, hand over hand, no legs, and just faster than a guy. Yep. And she was a beauty queen in her own right. And she went to Ohio State, graduated from Ohio State, married her love of her life, was also a lieutenant in the ROTC. She was an officer. But it's a tremendous book, but it talks about the struggles. And I can only imagine, from your time at that time, being a 3%er coming into the 40%, even when you think about the pay, indifferences, but paving that way, it's like what you did then to now. And there's many more like you.
Absolutely.
But even the women that aren't like you, there's people that can be threatened by that a lot in a lot of ways. And it's unfortunate, because they got there because of the work you did. And there's this obligation now to hire more women. And I'm not trying to throw any disrespect, but it gets clouded now.
It does.
And it gets confused. And then to go to these positions requires the work. Do the work.
Do the work.
And that can be conflicting too in today's business. I'm sure it is probably the same in politics at some point. But how does that challenge work today for somebody like you? And you've worked so hard to pave this way, and then you come against folks that are in influential positions, but they're still not carrying the rucksack that you carried to pave this way.
Right. Well, and going back again to one of my best region managers when I was at UPS, one of the things that he said one time, he was like, "Nancy, I don't understand why we get along so well. I'm a calloused a-hole." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to tell you something. The reason why we get along so well is because you're consistent. You treat me exactly.
Always be the same.
Yeah,
exactly.
You treat me exactly like you treat all the guys, everybody. If I come into your office and I need a butt chewing, you chew my butt. You treat me exactly the same, and that's all we want. That's
it.
all we want is just be consistent. And if we need to be criticized or challenged, by all means, challenge me. Absolutely, ask me a question, hold me accountable. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
That's what we want. And I think, to your question, I think when we go back into government, I'm a legislator that within 100 years, women became the opportunity to vote. So I became a legislator within that first 100 years of women being able to vote. So I'm sort of still paving the way, because whenever I was elected, one of the things that was, I was on the front page everywhere and interviewed every day, because it was the first time that we had such a large number of women in the legislative branch. So women are kind of new to the process. And I think that sometimes, again, I love chivalry. Chivalry should still be alive. Open the door for me, absolutely. Help me put my coat on. I'm okay with that. But by golly, I can carry my own coat. I can carry my own suitcase. I can carry my own.
I can think for myself.
Don't think any less of a man who offers.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. It's like a lot of times
There's
men
still a
men are pushed back.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, how dare you? You're just a chauvinist. And it's like, because I wanted to open the door for you. You can say no, please. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can walk away. It's like not a problem.
That is just a value.
Absolutely.
It is. I mean, we were taught that
courtesy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't just open doors for ladies. I open them for other men and things too. It doesn't matter. I treat everybody the same. I wanted to say something about this whole gender and sports thing. They had I thought this was funny. Back about a week or so ago, just about a week ago now, there was a power lifter up in Canada. Did y'all see this story?
Nope.
So there was a lady. If you go, it's I'm looking at it's on Fox Sports here, but it's from March 31st, and there was a transgender female. So she was a male that transgendered maybe 15, 20 years ago. And she was holding the record in Canada for, all the weightlifting records, right? No big, not a big deal, whatever. But, these other biological women weren't being able to,
Keep up.
compete. So the new women's weightlifting record is held by, you can't see it here, but I don't know if we can get that. This is the person that holds it now. And what he did was he walked into a
he went into a women's event.
He went into a women's event and said, had a full beard. So all he had to do, there's nothing, in Canada law they cannot even question it. And he walked in, said, I'm a woman, sat down, broke the record by over 100, had no issue in lifting the 370 pounds that it took to break the record by 100 pounds. And then, won the competition, and that's it. And that's who it is. The old record holder, the previous record holder, the one, the transgender, the transgender person, she or he, whatever.
We don't even know what to call them.
I don't even know, but
we don't want to be disrespectful by any
I'm trying
means.
not to be, but it's like,
be disrespectful,
but I don't know,
we're
so
struggling here.
I guess she would want to be called a she, but they were in attendance, and afterwards they had this whole thing on Facebook or on I don't know if it was on YouTube or whatever. Or, anyway, there was a video, and they were like the reason
Was this in Canada?
Yeah. The reason that nobody worries about me in this is because I'm a nice person. And the reason that it's all good is because I'm nice. I treat people nice and things like that. And this person, the guy that won, he just walked away. He was like, he won the record and left. And he was originally a professional weightlifter. I think he's a coach he's a coach somewhere now is what it is. But anyway, it's just an insane situation. But I'm glad he did it. Right? Yeah. Because it just proves that, God, you can't just have this willy-nilly, insanity put in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that's exactly what we need to do. We need to challenge this by doing more of that. I mean, I think you take the whole men's basketball team and then try out for the women's basketball team and have the women's basketball team try out for the men's basketball team one year, and you just flip-flop it and go play at an entire countywide whatever competition just to make a stance. But honestly, that's not going to happen in school and education.
No, but what I think, Mark, what they're trying to do is we alluded to it earlier, and I think you alluded to it, Steve, and you talked about when we were talking about truth. Mm-hmm. The truth. Okay, so what they're doing is they're encouraging us to believe a variation of the truth. Mm-hmm. And the truth is a truth. One of my teachers a long time ago, and I'll never forget this. Well, I say never, but as I get older, I'm sure I will. But, you know, an apple is an apple. And an orange is an orange. And no matter what anybody tells you, an apple is an apple. So there is definite truth. And people are trying to convince us that our version of the truth is not the truth. But there are truths, there's standards, there's terminology that we all have to hold ourselves accountable, again, to believing and to teaching and to emphasizing. Otherwise, we lose it all.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, what gets to me is they act like these sexual thoughts and things are just in people naturally, and they've never been exposed to anything that kind of creates this this thought pattern that happens in their mind that starts. But it's like an addiction, right? It's like anything that you become addicted to. You did something, or you saw something, or you tried a drug, or ate some food or whatever. Because my addiction is food, and you know, your mind and your body had a reaction to that, and there was it set off the pleasure sections in your brain, sections in your brain, and now it's like your mind associates good feelings with doing doing that activity or eating that food or what have you, and that to me is kind of what we're seeing, and that's why they want to be able to tell your kids in school to do these things, because now they're going to say, well, see, it's always been there. But you cannot tell me. There's not. I know there's not enough studies on this, I guess, but you cannot tell me that a child who's 2, 3, 4 years old who thinks that they're transgender, if you show me that child, I will show you a parent who wished they had the other child. They had the other gender.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're up against. I mean, you know, there was we used to look at that as, you know, as feel sorry for parents, kids that would go through that, because there were a lot.
But you say
there was so much that, you know, there were horror flicks about it in the
you
80s.
say this, Mark, but I just took on 3 littles. I'm almost fearful to even talk about these types of subjects for fear that they would think I'm abusing my child by not giving them these opportunities. That is the complexity at which we're putting parents in right now.
That's because the government is involved
I understand
in your
but
situation.
I understand that, but that's where the government should not be involved.
That's
They should
right.
not be
I agree.
They should not be telling me. I mean, I think it's abusive that you would tell a 3-year-old or somebody that.
It absolutely is.
But
It is child abuse.
They
but I'm
cannot.
child abuse for being old-minded and think that there's a boy is a boy and a girl's a girl.
One of the ladies that came to testify there in Frankfurt, I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with her. Her name was Luca, and she was from Nebraska. And Luca talked about her situation. Her father was a doctor, and so whenever she started her transition from a female to a male, her father got all kinds of accolades. I mean, they were so excited. His peers were so excited because he was so brave and so accommodating, and he was basically establishing the first frontier. And she said, so that she started when she was about 16 doing the transgender mutilation. And so when she became 22, it dawned on her that she would never be able to have children. She would never be able to have a relationship,
That's right.
true relationship with a man. And so she went to her father and she said, Dad, I can't do this. I've changed my mind.
That's what I'm talking about from earlier.
Right. Her father kicked her out of the house.
Yeah, but-
completely cut her off because now his peers, he wasn't
Are
getting
going to-
accolades from
Yeah.
his peers. And she said, Nancy, that was the most narcissistic, abusive situation.
That's the
that I've
situation
ever
that
been
we're in.
Yeah.
Narcissism is running rampant
But she's not alone.
in the United States,
She's not alone. No, I know.
in the world.
But I can imagine it probably happens in our own government.
Everybody has too much. Everybody feels that their feelings and their thoughts are way more important than they really are. That's a big
Well,
problem.
that's from the social media.
It's not just
It's amplified.
but it started before social
I know.
media.
It
It's been coming along with
Sure it did.
television.
Dr. Spock actually started.
But let me
that,
hold
right?
on. Let me rephrase about what I mean by social
Yeah.
media. We're back to how fast information flows and how rapidly
Yeah,
you can be famous.
But you started stroking kids before social media came around.
Be careful you use stroking kids on a live show.
Well, okay. Yeah, well.
People make snippets.
I'm talking about, everybody, and I don't want to go down this trail of, how much is too much, but, when you start handing out trophies to everybody for everything, right? You're simply saying that no matter how much you prepare, how much you do in anything, you're going to win. What you're doing is the right thing. And I'll be the first to admit that when I couldn't coach my kids, right? I can coach other people's kids, but I can't coach mine because I want so much more for my kids than I'm even able to provide.
That's what I tell our.
Being unrealistic.
And so I became unrealistic, and I ruined my oldest two from sports, and my youngest I kind of laid off. I said, I'll be an assistant coach. I'll be there. I'll whatever. But
That's like me doing homework with the kids. I'm like, I'm not qualified to be a teacher at home because I care too much about what the end product looks like, and I'm just too analytical. I'm not the right one to be the homework guy.
Don't let anybody convince you that you're not smart enough or perfect to help your children with their homework.
No, I can do it. It's just that
Because that process will try to influence upon your children, as Mark, that you're an idiot.
no, I don't want that.
I mean,
You
that's
don't want that.
No, I don't want that. No. But I will tell you though, I've been very critical of Landon working on his cursive, and
no.
and I'm very critical. I'm like that sucks. I'm like, and I'll tell him. I said, if
That's a show all by itself. Because
I'm like-
I can debate whether or not cursive is even a
hold on.
viable thing to need to learn.
But I don't get. But it is anyway.
Yeah.
I'm glad they teach it at school. But excuse me. What I was gonna say is, I'm a little bit blunt. I mean, because I'm an ex-gener, but I tell Landon, and But now what he does is he won't present the product to me until I know. And he knows that he will. I mean, I love on him when he brings me something that he puts his hard work into, and it is even much closer than where he did when he half-heartedly tried it. That's when I'm like, now I'm impressed because now you really tried. And he thrives on that response. But it didn't come from me just babying him along and giving him a trophy for trying.
Yeah.
And I even told the teacher, I said, if you got to take 10 extra minutes because he rushes through something from recess or the whole recess, then, but Lena, but he's doing so amazing in 3 months. But I don't see that that's anything wrong with that.
My best,
But
my
I just only have so much patience.
my best friend from school used to say he used to blame his teacher because his penmanship was so bad, and his penmanship was so bad. He said it was because writing was right before recess, and they said if you don't get your writing done, you can't go to recess. And out the door he'd go.
Well, I guess it goes back
I'll
to
take the D.
Nancy's old boss. I'm at least consistent with him.
That's right.
If it's good, it's good. It sucks, it sucks. There's no in between.
That's right. Absolutely. Be consistent. That's all that kids, that's all as adults we want.
Well, and I think we want that in our legislature too.
Certainly do.
So, given that, I'm flipping it right back to as we close out the show, but you served on a lot of committees. Going into next legislation, where do you see your heart going and taking you to help the state improve? Out of 600 bills, you guys got 190 as a recap across the finish line, approved as law. And some significant ones. If you guys don't know, go on to the Kentucky state page, look at all the bills that were presented and approved. There's a lot of information about them. We obviously don't have time to talk about it the rest of the night.
Sure.
But where are you going with the future?
Yeah, so one of the things, and of course, my passion obviously is the protection of women and families. The families
and children.
I call it families and children, right? Because men as well, and they're very important. So because they're our future, they're absolutely our future. And so I will continue to work on improving the livelihood of our children and of our families. Absolutely, because we have so many issues that we need to work on.
We do.
We've got foster care, we've got adoption, we've got, we're working to make, the state, the executive branch wants to make sure that we have less than 10,000 children at any point in our foster care system. We shouldn't worry about what that number is. We should worry about placing children in a secure environment.
That's-
whether that's with
Right
their
here.
biological
I
parents
know.
or with their
Yeah.
foster
I
family
mean, what does
as
that mean?
quickly as possible.
So
Yeah,
it's interesting that you say that, because there's a lot of benefits that used to be available that are no longer available for fictive kin or family care.
Right.
We're like outcasts and compared to the rest of the foster families that do fostering. But I mean, we're as vital, if not instrumental, in placing these children if we weren't available. Now, I'm an in-state, out-of-state, but I long story. We could have another subject about that. But what are the committees you're hoping to get involved in then next year?
Yeah, so basically I'll continue my active work as the pro-life caucus chair, a co-chair. I will work very hard and diligently. One of the things that you're going to see, and they're already, fortunately for us, praise the Lord, is that, we're over 200 days of no abortions in the Commonwealth of Kentucky without the exception of the life of the mother. Praise the Lord, right?
Right.
Absolutely. And so we'll continue to work at that. But what you're going to see is that people are chipping
I got an
away.
applause button for that. Hold on.
Oh.
There it is. There it is. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing is people are trying to chip away at that. They want these exceptions. We just had, I think earlier this week, there were 3 women that were from the Jewish community, and they basically came back and said that our pro-life bills were discriminatory toward their religion. So you're going to see people just trying to chip away, rape and incest, chip away.
So I didn't know Jewish faith had an abortion like line item.
Yeah, so basically what these women are saying, and there's a discrepancy within the Jewish community, but basically these women are saying that the life of the mother always takes precedence. And so they're pushing that point. And so what you're seeing
But that's a conversation between the mother and the doctor.
Absolutely, because it is the
Why does it need
mother.
government funding?
It doesn't need government funding. We've already said that the life of the mother will take precedence.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, but what about our mental health? So if it's
What do you not have medical insurance? Isn't it a federal law for you to have medical insurance and go to talk to your doctor about those things?
But if this pregnancy interferes with my mental health, then I need to have the opportunity to abort this child. That's the logic that they're trying to use.
What does the law that y'all are trying to write prevent them from being able to have that conversation with their doctor behind closed doors, protected by HIPAA, and do whatever procedure they need to out of their own pocket to save their own life?
The life of the mother only applies to the physical life. It doesn't apply to the mental
That's
or
right.
emotional.
That's right.
And that's exactly right. So, so right now that's the way it is. And that's, to me, I strongly support life from conception to natural death. I'm emphatic with that. And so my concern is that we're going to see where there's a chip away of the, and you know what happens when you have ice and you keep chipping away.
There's nothing left.
It falls apart.
Yep.
So, my question was, well, Nancy, will you make exceptions for abnormalities?
Nope.
Right, that's another chip away. So let's don't chip away. Let's just have.
Why don't we just throw them all in a petri dish and pre-design them so that you can just make the kid you want to before you have it?
Well, that was part of their argument as well. So if they have in vitro, then they want to be able to choose which child they want of the multiple births that potentially can happen.
Well,
so now we're going back to designer children again, where we want the perfect child. And we're not going to, and the rest of them don't matter. So I'm going to make sure that we do not chip away at the most.
Well, I hear. We're back to the same subject.
Yeah.
Okay, but you could have a kid. Well, according to the way the world's going right now, you can make that kid whatever you want it to as soon as it comes out of the womb. So what do your argument is again? I'm
That's
sorry.
exactly right. Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Right. And not only that, but people go, well, Nancy, why are you so concerned about the transgender or the gender mutilation? Okay.
Talk to that girl that just came and you spent all that time with, who was narcissistically motivated to change her life, influenced by the person who brought her into this world and has the most influence in their life growing up and knows no better.
Right, and not only that, but if we mutilate people's genitals, then they'll be sterile. And so you don't have to worry about abortions anymore because we'll have this huge portion of the population that's sterile.
That's absolutely right.
Oh my gosh, how
We can't
horrifying.
reproduce.
We can't reproduce.
There was a
No, because then they want your children.
Yeah,
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
They want to take your children and affect whatever change they want to raise your children because they don't want to have children of their own. I mean, think about it. Most of the people that are affecting our children today are people who don't really like kids.
There was
You
a
know?
lot of, it was about 20 years ago, or not 20 years. Well, it has been, oh my gosh.
Where are the kids of like AOC? And,
Yeah, well, no,
know?
I was going to say it's been about 20 years, but there was a conversation years ago. There was, and I'm not trying to go racial or anything like that, but there was the conversation, we'll breed out Americans from a specific group, and it had to do with a lot of the terrorism that was going on in the world and stuff. So, but there's all kinds of arguments about stopping our ability to reproduce so that it could be infiltrated through the births of other religious cultures or colors or whatever. So, it's always that influence. At the end of the day, y'all have made leaps and bounds with the legislative that tackle some of those big discussions and make it very clear for us now moving forward as a state, and I'm very appreciative of that. I know that there's a lot of sacrifice that goes in that and holding your ground. I just want to say thank you for holding your ground.
Amen. I second that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We started this conversation off as we sent you to do the job, and you've done the most outstanding job that we could have asked for.
Thank you. I
So,
appreciate
and
that.
I will always be supportive of you and because just you are exactly the person that you said you are.
And
That's what I want you all to know. Whenever I go to Frankfurt to represent you, I want you to know exactly how you can anticipate I'm going to vote, because I'm going to stand behind my convictions, and I'm going to tell you. I've already told you how I'm going to vote.
Well, it's not even that. It's that you're also holding people accountable.
That's right. And I'm going to represent District 27.
That's right.
And our rural conservative values to the best of my ability, and sometimes maybe even to my detriment, right?
Yeah, but
But I will be vocal, and
That's what we expect you to do.
Not destructively, but constructively.
Yeah.
To make sure that those bills are the best.
no, and I get it, and that's what we need in our Republican Party, because we need to showcase that we're holding each other accountable. Now, the backlash that comes from that is uncalled for, and that's where we're going to destroy ourselves as a party, and we need to check ourselves.
Yeah.
That goes back to where I was talking about being a mature supermajority. We have to. At what point does our majority, our supermajority, mature to the point that they understand that it's okay for us to have, not combative, but debates on subjects? Because to debate, you have to have somebody on both sides of the debate saying, hey, this is what we want to do, and the other one saying, well, wait a minute,
That's why we have party
is it the right thing to do?
politics.
And that's it used to be we had a Democrat and Republican debate. We don't do that anymore. There isn't. They don't want. The Democrats do not want to have a debate. They just want to say what we're going to do, and that's it. That's they want to. They want autocracy.
Yeah, but we cannot have that internally in the Republican Party.
But
Absolutely
exactly,
not.
and that's where I'm going with that. The Republican Party has got to realize that it takes that you have to allow that debate. We must let people talk. We must let people have discussion about these things, and if they're dissenting, it's okay. The dissenting is how you learn, right? It's how you decide. Hey, there might be something else out there that's better, or maybe it's not. Maybe I learned something in the debate.
Absolutely.
I may be wrong, but anyway.
Right.
Well,
and I think
You're not wrong.
And you've made sure too. We have to make sure that leadership recalls why we select and elect our leaders. We don't elect them for their own agendas. We elect them to represent us and to support us. And I think that sometimes leadership gets confused.
That's absolutely right.
And I'll say this: I'm not really happy with some of the decisions that leadership has made this year, but they're still our leaders, and it's okay. We'll have
They
to deal
got a
with
little
them.
bit of time to reflect between now and next year. So.
Yeah, so
That's right.
I'm looking for them to be better next year.
So tell us about Lincoln Days.
Lincoln Day dinner is going to be April 25th. It's a Tuesday, so a lot of people are used to us doing things on Thursday nights, but we are going to be on Tuesday night this time. It's going to be at Robert's Family Farm. It starts at 6 o'clock. Goes to about 8:30. We are expecting Daniel Cameron. We're expecting, a few other representatives, whether or not we have the actual candidate or somebody, a surrogate from their campaigns. They're come to find out there's other Lincoln Days going on at the same time. So we'll take whoever we got, and I think, but just about every one of the major candidates are going to be represented here. So.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the opportunity always. Let me come back and I'll talk about the priorities from all the other committees that I am a part of. And
you're always welcome.
Thank you. I'm a member of some amazing committees that represent our district very well.
And that's how I want to close. Folks, I want to let you know we sent Nancy Tate to the state to take it to town, and she's done a great job, and let me tell you, she's going to hold the state accountable. She represents us right here in Meade County. That's why we voted for her, so she's coming back next year. I'm going to guarantee you she's going to give you hell there too, but you got to listen because she does her homework, and you take my word for it, she's not going to let you settle for anything other than the critical thinking required to do the job. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Meade Truth. You guys have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for coming, Nancy.
And happy Easter, right?
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
God has risen. He will be here again, and we are so thankful to him in all things God.
Amen.